In our incredibly fast-paced modern world where everything's always rushing forward, have you ever just stopped and wondered if all this progress is actually making us healthier?
Or maybe just making things more complicated.
Exactly. What if the real secrets to well-being aren't the latest gadget, but somewhere much, much older?
That's a great question, and it's pretty much the core of what we're diving into today.
Right. So today we're unpacking a really fascinating health review. It's titled Vedic Wisdom versus Modern Life, a Health Review.
And the original source it's looking at is called Vedic Kal ke Logon ki Swath, Jivan Shaili Versaj, Vaiganik Yug Ka Prabhavik Samiksha.
Which translates, roughly, to the healthy lifestyle of people in the Vedic age versus the impact of today's scientific era, a review. Quite a title.
It really is. And our mission here, is to pull out the key insights from these two very different ways of looking at health.
We want to uncover maybe some surprising facts and ultimately see if we can find a practical way forward for ourselves, for living well today.
A balanced path.
Okay, so let's start by stepping back, way back. The review calls it the Pela Drishtikon, the first perspective, the Vedic way. It paints this picture of, coexistence with nature.
Deep harmony, really.
Mm-hmm.
People living lives that were pure, yes, but also just completely aligned with the rhythms of time, of nature itself. It sounds quite idyllic.
It does, but what did that actually look like day to day? The review mentions specifics.
Yeah, it gets quite concrete. For instance, waking up really early during Brahma Muhurat, that pre-dawn time.
And sticking to a specific daily routine, a dinacharya.
Exactly. But it wasn't just about being rigid, it seems. It was more about syncing up with the natural world's pulse.
So beyond just the wake-up call, what were the sort of core practices for body and mind?
Well, the review really emphasizes things like yoga, of course, and pranayama, those focused breathing techniques.
And Dhyan meditation.
Right, and these weren't like weekend hobbies. They were apparently fundamental daily practices for keeping body and mind in balance, integrated into the fabric of their day.
Makes sense. And this holistic view, it carried over to food too, right? The review mentions local, seasonal, and sattvic food. What exactly is sattvic?
Sattvic basically means pure, simple, wholesome. Food that promotes clarity and energy. Think fresh fruits, vegetables, grains.
And crucially, the review notes, no processing, no preservatives.
None at all. It was literally farm to table, or maybe forest to table, a really direct connection with their food source.
So clean food. What about physical activity? No gyms back then, I assume?
No, not in the modern sense. Their physical activity was just life. The review mentions things like farming, daily chores, walking.
So their work was their workout.
Pretty much, yeah. It wasn't just about getting things done. It was seen as building strength, building immunity naturally. Constant natural movement was just part of survival.
Okay, so pure food, active bodies.
Yeah.
What about the mind? How did they cultivate mental strength or peace?
Again, practices like dhyana, meditation were key, but also things like chanting mantras, engaging in religious or spiritual rituals.
So these weren't just religious obligations.
According to the review, they were seen as practical tools for building inner discipline, focus, and a sense of peace, even amidst life's challenges.
And the environment itself played a role, living in a pollution-free green space.
Absolutely. The review highlights that context. Clean air, clean water, abundant nature. It wasn't just a backdrop, it was an active contributor to their health.
So the big takeaway from this Vedic perspective isn't just a list of healthy habits.
No, it's deeper. It seems to be suggesting that this profound connection with nature, living in harmony with it, was perhaps the ultimate source of their health.
Leading to, as the review claims, fewer diseases, long life, maybe even a less stressful existence overall.
Right. Well-being wasn't something they chased. It was seemingly an outcome of how they lived.
Okay, that's a compelling picture. Now let's pivot hard to the Dusra Drishtikon, the second perspective, our modern scientific age.
Right. And look, we all appreciate the advances, the conveniences technology brings. But this review really focuses on what it calls the deep side effects on our health.
Where does it start? What's the main issue it points to?
Well, the digital lifestyle gets top billing. Our phones, laptops, they're amazing tools, no doubt. But they've also led to a massive drop in physical activity. We just move less, way less. We're glued to screens.
And it's not just the devices themselves, it's the whole culture, isn't it? The review talks about sedentary jivan, a sitting culture.
Exactly. Office jobs, commuting, even relaxing at home often means sitting. Hours and hours of it.
What does the review say is the impact of all that stillness?
It really hammers this point.
Right.
Our bodies just aren't built for it. It suggests that sitting culture is a major factor in, a lot of modern physical health problems.
Okay, so we're moving less. What about what we're putting into our bodies? The food situation.
Yeah, that's another big one. The review points to the dominance of processed foods.
And chemical farming practices.
Right. Leading to a situation where, the review argues pretty strongly, we're often consuming toxins instead of nutrition. That's a direct quote, and it's stark.
It really is. Like we're undermining ourselves from the inside.
That seems to be the implication, burdening our systems instead of fueling them properly.
And the impact isn't just physical, is it?
Yeah.
What about mental health in this modern picture?
The review highlights rising stress levels, definitely, and also feelings of loneliness.
Why? What's driving that, according to the source?
It points to the sheer pace of life, the constant pressure, intense competition.
And maybe social media playing a role too, that constant comparison.
Exactly. The review suggests our minds are just constantly bombarded without those natural rhythms or practices for finding calm that the Vedic era seemed to have built in.
And zooming out even further, the review connects our health to the planet's health. Plastic, radiation, deforestation.
Yeah, it argues we've kind of sickened nature itself.
Yeah.
And because we're part of nature, that inevitably impacts us. It's all interconnected.
So when you put all these modern factors together, less movement, processed food, mental stress, environmental issues, what's the overall result described in the review?
It paints a pretty concerning picture, honestly. A significant rise in lifestyle diseases, things like diabetes, obesity, hypertension.
Which were apparently much rarer before.
Seemingly so. Plus, widespread mental health challenges and maybe generally weakened immunity. The review draws a clear line connecting our modern way of life to these health crises.
Wow. Okay, so we have these two very different pictures. The Vedic harmony and the modern complications. It feels a bit like we have to choose.
But that's exactly what the review argues against. It's very clear. This isn't about ditching science and going back in time.
It's not Vedic versus modern.
No, it's about finding balance. What the review calls a bichkarasta, a middle path.
Okay, this is where it gets practical for us listening right now. How do we find that middle path?
Well, the core idea is using science and technology consciously, using it to improve life, not letting it accidentally spoil it.
Being mindful of the downsides, maybe.
Exactly. Choosing how we engage with it. And the review offers some concrete suggestions, borrowing from both worlds.
Like what can people actually do?
It suggests integrating some of those Vedic practices. Daily yoga, for instance. Trying to lean into that sattvic diet idea, more whole, local, seasonal foods.
Less processed stuff.
Right. And crucially, making time for regular digital detox. Actually stepping away from the screens consistently. Even small breaks add up.
That sounds doable. What else?
Taking environmental responsibilities seriously.
Yeah.
Producing plastic, planting trees, conserving water, recognizing that our health and the planet's health are, fundamentally linked.
It's not just personal habits, it's a broader awareness.
Definitely. And finally, really prioritizing mental well-being. Actively adopting practices like meditation or mindfulness.
Kind of like building that inner peace the Vedic texts talked about, but using techniques accessible to us now.
Precisely. Applying ancient wisdom with modern understanding.
So wrapping this all up, what's the core message we should take away from this review?
I think the essence is this. The Vedic era, perhaps, showed us the art of living, how to exist in balance.
While modern science has given us incredible tools and conveniences.
Right. And true progress, true development, isn't about choosing one over the other. It's about finding that sensitive balance.
A balance between nature, science, and ourselves as individuals. Designing our lives with intention.
Yeah. Not just letting modern life happen to us, but actively shaping it.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? For everyone listening, how can you start to weave together these threads? How can you create your own balanced, fulfilling life right here, right now?
Maybe it's not about a perfect solution, but just finding your own unique middle path.
Definitely something to mull over.